Trying times all the time. Destruction of minds, bodies, and human rights. Stripped of bloodlines, whipped and confined. This is the American pride. It's justifying a genocide, romanticizing the theft and bloodshed that made America the land of the free. To take a black life, land of the free, to bring a gun to a peaceful fight for civil rights. You are desensitized, pulling triggers on innocent lives because that's how we got here in the first place. These wounds sink deeper than the bullet your entitled hands could ever reach. Generations and generations of pain, fear, and anxiety. Equality is walking without intuition, saying the protector and the killer is wearing the same uniform. The revolution is not televised. Media perception is forced down the throats of closed minds, so it's lies in the headlines and generations of supremacy resulting in your ignorant, privileged eyes. We breathe the same and we bleed the same, but still we don't see the same. Be thankful we are God fearing because we do not seek revenge. We seek justice. We are past fear. We are fed up eating your shit because you think your so-called black friend validates your wokeness and erases your racism. That kind of uncomfortable conversation is too hard for your trust fund pockets to swallow. To swallow the strange fruit hanging from my family tree because of your audacity to say all men are created equal in the eyes of God, but disparage a man based on the color of his skin.
What's good, great people? I did know that I was live, but I was listening to music before I got on, and I that happened to come on right as I was going live. It really speaks to um, not just my feelings right now, but I'm sure the feelings of millions of black people in this country that just witnessed another gross injustice with the decision not to prosecute the murderers of Breonna Taylor. So it's Wednesday, 8 o'clock. I'm Andre. This is the second coming. Welcome. I really was kind of tussling with what it was I was going to speak on today. Um, I had a bunch of ideas in my head and a bunch of things. I wanted to have a little bit of fun um, with some people that I was going back and forth with, some friends of mine that I was going back and forth with on Facebook earlier this week. But sitting and watching the news as I was finishing up work today, I was uh, I was compelled to speak on this, speak on the the unjust decision not to hold these murderous police officers accountable. And then not just the decision not to hold them accountable, but the subsequent, movements that they are making and the double talk that they have, to try to get around what it is they're doing. So real quick, what I really want to do um, is I really want to, put out my thoughts and prayers to the family and the loved ones of Breonna Taylor. Because today has to be as hard for them as the day they lost that lovely young woman. And it's hard. Like this hits like family every time for me, and I'm sure for a lot of y'all too. Like this is Breonna Taylor is no different than my sister. I have two sisters. Um, and I think of all of the women in my family that are important to me, and just all of the women and families around the world that are important to them, and how this could have been any one of them. And so that makes me wonder, like, you know why this continues to happen. Like, it's not something new. It's not something that we haven't seen. So I really want to pay homage to Breonna Taylor today. But I want to do so in a way where we stick to the facts. We stick to the things that we know, and we're reminded of the things that continue to happen to us as a people. And sometimes, a lot of times, these things get lost, along the way. And so the first thing I want to do is I want to just talk about Breonna just a little bit. She was 26 years old. She was 26 years old, and um, she was a very vivacious young woman based on, what her family and her friends say. Um, a go getter. She had goals, and she was about uh, getting them. And she's about reaching her goals and accomplishing them. So, and that's like a lot of our Black women. I often say how I've never met anyone in my lifetime. And I was in the Marine Corps. I had friends from every branch of service, and I've never met anybody stronger than a Black woman. I just haven't. And that's not to say they're not people that are just as strong or but there I've never met anyone stronger than a Black woman. Um, and I really commend our sisters, and I'm hard on y'all because y'all make us who we are. Everything good about myself comes from a Black woman. I'm always going to be hard on y'all because I know the power that y'all possess. But I'm never going to stop defending y'all and stop protecting y'all as much as I humanly can. And I hope that things like this help other Black men see that this is something that we have to do. We have to protect our Black women, because if we don't, nobody will. Nobody will. And we need them. We need them. So, like I said, Breonna Taylor was a 26-year-old Black woman. She worked as an emergency room technician. She did that full time. A lot of people are saying she was an EMT. That was her. She was a former EMT. She did that before, prior to it, but she had been working as an emergency room technician full time, and she was doing so at the height of COVID. Um, she was decorated, and awarded in her field. She did a great day. Everybody who came into contact with her talked about the job that she was doing, and how dedicated and how passionate she was about doing it. She was very good at the job she was doing. She resided in Louisville, Kentucky, where you know where such a tragic murder took place. But like I said, she was a beautiful, intelligent, um, hardworking young woman. Um, it's I know her family will miss her greatly, and it's really impacted the world a lot. So, I really hope that moving forward, we honor her memory. For men, we honor the memory of Breonna Taylor by doing whatever we can to protect our young Black women. That's something that is definitely our responsibility, and aside from being our responsibility, it should be our privilege. It should be our privilege to be protectors of our women, because they hold us up, in a way that we couldn't begin to imagine how to describe. With the things that Black men go through, uh, you have no idea how hard your life would be as a Black man. I mean, I know life is hard. As a Black man, I know how hard life is as a Black man, but I also know there is no substitute for the love, compassion, and strength of a Black woman. And it just makes a life that's already difficult to go through so much easier when you have a Black woman in your corner. So protect and protect our Black women by all means. The memory of Breonna Taylor, Sandra Bland, and so many others. Let's honor their memory by trying with every breath in our body to protect and take care of the women that are here. So earlier today, like I said, as I was finishing up for work, I got the news that basically they made the decision not to prosecute, and it sent me into a state of shock. Honestly, it shouldn't. At this point, it shouldn't be something that we're shocked about. It shouldn't be something that we are. It shouldn't be something that we are surprised about. But I think that I choose not to be numb to it because I don't know how things would go if I got numb to it. Um, so I look at every situation and I look at it like each one is a travesty. Each one is horrible. Each one matters. And it's hard. Each one is hard for me. And this was just as hard. Uh, and it's like as soon as it happens, as soon as something like this happens, you start to think of all of the other uh, situations that have come about. You know, all of the other injustices that have come about, all of the police discrimination and harassment and brutality to Black people. Um, and as I was listening to, them talk about how they came to the decision not to prosecute, I began to go over in my head some of the things that I had been hearing when this thing first came to light, or at least for me. And we'll get all into that and we'll go down into that. Because I what I did was uh I put together a timeline of sorts of some of the significant events that are pertinent to this particular case. Um, of course, starting with that tragic day which was March the 13th, when officers serving a no-knock warrant burst into the home of Breonna Taylor and her boyfriend Kenneth Walker without identifying themselves as police officers, without turning on their body cams, um, or even having body cams, the body cams that they were supposed to have on them, not having them on them to begin with. And you know, over a dozen witnesses testified, uh, or attested to the fact that the police did not identify themselves. The 911 call that Breonna Taylor's boyfriend made it very clear that he didn't know that was the police that was coming into his house. Um, I don't know anybody that calls the police on the police. I just don't know that to be something that anybody would do. Um, and then the police themselves admitted that they were serving a no-knock warrant. That's important information. I want y'all to hold on to that, but we're gonna get back to that. Also on that same night when Breonna Taylor was murdered, her boyfriend was arrested and he was charged with attempted murder. Um, they busted in this man's house in the middle of the night. He shot a warning shot. He shot a warning shot. They're saying it hit one of the officers in the leg, but his one shot didn't warrant them shooting over a dozen shots. And as we go through this, I want y'all to understand something. So the majority of us were sheltered in place around this time. The majority of us were sheltered in place, and COVID-19 was the main news topic. And for me personally, I didn't know anything about what happened with Breonna Taylor. Um, I hadn't heard anything about it on the news. It wasn't until April, and I believe it was right around. It wasn't until April that I even heard anything about it. Which brings me to my next date, which is April the 19th, when Breonna Taylor's family decided that they were going to file a wrongful death lawsuit. Um, an important note on that lawsuit. That lawsuit also, it wasn't just a wrongful death lawsuit. That lawsuit also challenged the narrative that the police had put into place, meaning whatever the police testimony was about that night, they were challenging it, saying that they didn't believe the police were telling the truth about, saying the things that took place that night. So initially, when I heard about Breonna Taylor and I looked it up, and I found out what happened, of course, I was pissed. I was pissed. Like, you mean to tell me, it was actually, uh, it actually put me back into the mindset of Botham Jean, who was in his house eating some ice cream, probably smoking a little weed. I don't know. When he was in his house, in his underwear, and some cop who was sleep deprived, or drunk, or whatever she was. I don't know, whatever her state was, but whatever she was, she tries to go into the wrong apartment, and she opens fire and kills this man. And subsequently, she goes to cover it up. She actually calls several other officers to try to cover this thing up. Immediately, when I heard about Breonna Taylor, I started thinking about that particular case. So fast forward now, we're in May. So that was April 27th when they decided to file that lawsuit. On May the 13th, the prosecutor, the top prosecutor for Louisville, Kentucky, I believe it's Tim Wine, he recused himself. I don't know if how many people are familiar with recusals, but normally you recuse yourself when you may have an inappropriate position in those particular proceedings. So you recuse yourself as to maintain a level of, I'll say a level of integrity. I think if you know that you don't have no business speaking on something, recuse yourself. I don't know how well that did for us in this case because at that point, the AG, I don't know, can y'all hear me now? I'm sorry if my mic was going out. But at that point, the AG, Daniel Cameron, took over as the special prosecutor. If y'all not familiar with Daniel Cameron, he was actually giving a speech. He had actually given a speech recently at the Republican National Convention. So a black man who is, a Trump supporter, and he was praised again by Trump today. And I actually found out. Well, I'll get into that in a second. But Daniel Cameron was appointed as the special prosecutor for this particular case. On May the 22nd, they dropped the charges against Mr. Kenneth Walker, the boyfriend of Breonna Taylor. Those charges were dropped. On May the 28th, the 911 call that Kenneth Walker made was released. That's an important date for me because that's also, May the 28th is also 3 days after the death of George Floyd. At this point, a lot of people hadn't really, Breonna Taylor hadn't really been in the national media that long. Breonna Taylor had really started being in the national media when the family filed for the wrongful death. So now for them to release the 911 call, and I can't play the audio, but if you all have the, anybody with Google can go and find that audio. If you listen to that brother, tell somebody, he sounds so bewildered when he says, and I quote, "I don't know what's happening. Somebody just broke in my house and shot my girlfriend." Not the police. Not these cops were not only in plain clothes, but they never identified themselves. They burst in the door and he shot at them and they started taking off shooting. Now, granted, they never hit him once, but they hit Breonna Taylor 6 times. Who was unarmed, and even by the testimony of police, she was unarmed. And so how do you go from being unarmed to unresponsive? Be black. Simply be black. When the police are involved, you want to go to from being unarmed to unresponsive. Just be black. So on May the 29th, Mayor Greg Fisher, suspended all use of no-knock warrants. I really want y'all to keep in mind everything surrounding these no-knock warrants, because I want to add something to that at the end. And June 11th, the Louisville Metro Council unanimously passed Breonna's Law. Breonna's Law is a law that actually bans no-knock warrants in Louisville. So now no-knock warrants are now banned in Louisville. June the 23rd, Officer Brett Hankinson, sound like a cracker, don't it? Officer Brett Hankinson was fired for blindly firing into Breonna Taylor's arm. Now, you fired the cop for blindly firing into an apartment building, but he can't be charged for negligent homicide. He just can shoot with his eyes closed. So fast forward from June until September. September the 9th, A.G. Cameron, Attorney General Daniel Cameron, has been included or was included in Donald Trump's short list of Supreme Court candidates. So this walking, talking Sambo Coon is now on the short list for Supreme Court candidates. Out of nowhere. Nobody ever hearing about him never being anything, just spewing nonsense about this case. And now he's on the short list of Supreme Court candidates for our idiot in chief. September the 15th is when Breonna Taylor's family was awarded their $12 million settlement for the wrongful death. And don't get it twisted, that's a civil settlement that has nothing to do with the legal ramifications of them committing murder, and her being a victim of police brutality and being murdered in the process. Those are two totally different things. That the criminal and the civil actions are two totally different things. And that brings me to today. All of this stuff that I've been hearing, and I remember hearing about it when in April when somebody finally told me about it, and I remember hearing no-knock warrant. The officers admitted that they were serving a no-knock warrant. The mayor suspended the use of no-knock warrants. The Louisville Metro Council passed a law banning no-knock warrants. And today, Attorney General Daniel Cameron says that the police were not excuse me, let me back up. Not that they weren't serving a no-knock warrant, but they knocked to serve a no-knock warrant. So he's basically saying now that the no-knock warrant is out of place. Now, I also remember hearing that the no-knock warrant wasn't even for the house that they went into. Breonna Taylor's house was the wrong address. I heard that. That didn't come to light in the when it came down for the grand jury. I also heard that they tried to dirty up Breonna Taylor's character by offering her ex-boyfriend, who's in jail for selling drugs. They tried to offer him a plea deal so that just so he would say that Breonna Taylor helped him sell drugs. I was also told, and I also found this through looking out today, there was a internet news publication, Wave, where a woman actually posted a story about Breonna Taylor calling in to quit a job that she had worked 4 years prior. None of this has any bearing on the events of that evening. So why are you reporting that when you could be reporting on anything that's merited in the case or the merits of this particular case? But we know that that's what they do. That's what they do to us. We know that that's how they handle us. And it's really it's a shame. It's really a shame. And at some point, people are going to push back. At some point, people are going to want retribution. One of the things that resonated with me in her, that was her song "I Can't Breathe." That I was it was the excerpt, that little excerpt that I played when I was coming online. That was for her song "I Can't Breathe." And one of the things she said that really resonated with me, and it has always resonated with me, is that we as a people, we never seek revenge. Black people never seek revenge. We always just want justice. We want equality. What do you think is going to happen when Black people want their shit back? What do you think is going to happen when Black people want what's been taken from us? Our freedom, our rights. What's going to happen when we fight to get those back as opposed to fight to get you to recognize that we deserve them? Because at a certain point, the revolution won't be televised. And I always struggle with what that meant. But that meant at a certain point, we're not going to care about who see change, or we're not going to care about who makes things, like what. No, we're not going to care. What we're going to care about is starting to put ourselves in place to never be pushed against the wall again. I'm going to tell you something. I've always been a family person. I love my family. I adore my family. I have very close ties to my family, and I've always respected the structure of a family. I was talking to my best friend about this today. Even the family that I've chosen, her namely, and my all of my friends and loved ones that are not related to me by blood. I chose them as family, and I love them, and I cherish them as though we were family. So I've always been a family person, and Black people, you are my family. I know we're hurting right now. I don't have all of the answers. None of us do. But I want y'all to know we all have to be vigilant, and we all have to be mindful, and we all have to look out for each other. We all we got. That's the fact. That's the truth. We all we got. Let's look out for each other. I love y'all, man. I'll see y'all next week. Be safe. Hug somebody you love.